Okay, now I know what you're saying. Sky, aren't you done with your shadow cosplay? Why are you making another video about it? Well, I have a problem. I wanted to take my shadow cosplay to a convention, and you know what you can't typically take into convention centers? Skates. There's also the fact that I am not confident enough in my abilities to skate to not roll over somebody or injure myself with around crowds and stuff. So that's besides the point. Anyway, I have a couple of options. I could go in regular shoes, completely normal, totally acceptable, but the cosplay demons are whispering into my ears telling me
Make shoes. Make shoes.
So, I'm going to be making Shadow's air shoes for real this time. And I'm also going to be doing a couple of upgrades to the cosplay just to add some more pizzazz. Also, somebody on TikTok said my rings looked like bagels, and now I can't unsee it, so I love that. And the rings don't need to be baby-proof this time, since the likelihood of me falling and hurting myself is a lot less likely. So we're gonna go ham on those. Oh yeah, let's get started. As far as additional details go, I did go ahead and add the black arm symbol to the back of the hoodie with fabric paint, and I set it with an iron on low with parchment paper to prevent burning and sticking. I also added a few straps to the pants to hang chains and belts and all that stuff. And they didn't really do anything, but I think they look cool, and that's what matters. For the updated rings, I can either 3D print them with my 3D printer over here off screen, or I can make them out of clay and foam. I'm opting to use foam clay and work on my sculpting skills and stuff because I'll be using it a lot in future builds, and it's something that I kind of want to get better at. As for materials, for the core, I like to use poster board, like the cheap stuff that you can get at the Dollar Tree, that you would use for your little science project fairs, It's easy to work with, it's really darn cheap. And as far as patterns go, I have two different ring patterns, one for the wrists and one for the ankles. The inner diameter is scaled to my wrists and ankles so that I can slide them on without making any clasps, and I ended up cutting 3 layers of each ring. The cuts don't need to be perfect since I'll be using this for the core, and I'm going to be covering it with foam clay anyway. But since I am using poster board, I do have to peel off the paper, so enjoy some sweet, sweet ASMR. With all the layers cut out, I needed to glue them together, and when you're working with foam, you need to be aware of what types of glue you're using. Here are a few glues that are commonly used for cosplay: Uhu, super glue, and tacky glue. I tested it on a scrap piece of my foam, and both the Uhu and Gorilla Glue melted the foam or left some kind of damage or bubbles. The clear super glue even says not to use it on foam, like on the front, but I wanted to try it anyway since I've used it on EVA foam before. But the obvious winner is tacky glue. It's non-toxic and all around a safe bet when you need to glue something. So then I just glued all the layers together and let them dry and started covering all the rings in foam clay. It just takes a little bit of finagling and smoothing out the surface with a little bit of water to get the general shape. Once the foam clay dried, they were still a little bit lumpy looking, so I sanded them all down with fine grit sandpaper. And while it may be tempting to reduce the dust by wet sanding, this is foam clay, and so it'll rehydrate the dust and it'll make it all like gummy and sticky and ruin your surface finish. Speaking of surface finish, EVA foam and foam clay soak up paint like sponges. So a primer of some kind is absolutely needed if you don't want to go through like a bajillion bottles of paint. So I dusted off the remnants of the sanding dust and put a couple of coats of EVA foam primer on there. Okay, don't be like me when you do this, because this is the primer I was using. It's specifically meant for priming EVA foam, so it doesn't use up as much paint and you get a better finish on your piece. But I did not wait for them to dry long enough, and I accidentally ended up getting the pieces stuck together. And when I pulled it apart, it separated and it like peeled up. So now I'm gonna have to fix these, and it's going to take me, it's gonna set me back a couple of days on painting. So let's hope I can actually finish these before the convention I want to take them to. Hello, I'm currently editing right now and realized I did not explain how I fixed the rings, so let me do that right now. What I did was I just put some of the primer underneath the part that had started to peel up and let it dry because it sort of acted like a glue. And then I like buffed out the imperfections, and I put some foam clay on the voids and sanded it down just a little bit and repeated the process of like putting on the top coat, not the top coat, the primer, and let that dry for a little bit longer until it was like barely tacky, because I didn't want to keep waiting any longer. But anyway, I'll send you back to the video where I explain the rest of the stuff that I did. I opted to use spray paint once again to get that nice shiny finish that you can't usually get with just acrylic paints on their own. This also neutralized the sticky like top coat from the EVA foam primer so that they wouldn't destroy themselves if they touched each other again. And I also did a sealant layer with a paint on top coat to prevent transfer onto my clothes and shoes. For the shoes, I could choose to do a shoe cover, but the shoes that I was planning on using for this, I was going to put out of commission anyway because they have served their purpose, and the pleather was degrading and the sole on the shoe was splitting. But I said, why not? Let's just turn them into air shoes instead. To get the classic air shoe shape, I drafted a pattern out of paperboard cardboard, which unlike regular cardboard doesn't have like that little triangle corrugated pattern on the inside. It's all just flat layers. And the key to patterning it was to pattern it to attach at the sole of the shoe instead of at the ankle or attach at the toe, because the shoe that I was using is a slip-on shoe. So it's not like I had a place to like zip and unzip to get my foot in. I had to like slide my foot in. And if I attached it at the ankle, there wouldn't be enough stretch, and it would cause a lot of creasing and possibly like tearing the foam. So that was a no-go. I just decided to attach everything to the sole of the shoe instead. But once I was satisfied with the pattern pieces, I cut them out of 5mm EVA foam with a sharp X-Acto blade. Key being sharp, like sharp, like brand new sharp. And to get the foam to stick to the shoe, I used contact cement. Contact cement is extremely toxic and should only be used in a well-ventilated area with a respirator. Contact cement can be kind of tricky to use if you've never tried it before, but the gist of it is you want to cover both sides of the surfaces that you want to stick together, and you want to wait anywhere from 15 to 20 minutes for the glue to become tacky. Then you can stick the pieces together and they bond on contact. You don't want to glue it together too soon because the pieces won't stick together if it's still wet. And if you wait too long, they won't stick together either, but in that case, you can just put a new layer of glue on, no harm done. But as I said, it bonds on contact, so you will want to put registration marks or guidelines on your pieces, because once you stick them together, you can't really unstick them unless you want to damage it. So you'll want to do it right the first time or have backups. As far as the other details go, I drafted the sole of the shoes, the red parts, and also the cuffs of the shoes using the same techniques with just like paper, and I cut them out of various thicknesses of EVA foam. I think I again used 5mm EVA foam for like the tongue of the shoe, and then 3mm for the red parts and also the cuff of the shoe, just to get various thicknesses and a little bit of a dimension. And then I repeated the same steps, just gluing it on with contact cement and waiting the necessary amount of time. I intentionally left the cuffs of the shoes unattached to the main part of the shoe, because at that point I didn't really know how I was going to get the rings on there, because I didn't include any sort of clasp into the design. But after everything was glued, I just had to wait a couple of days for the glue to cure so that the seams didn't separate when I tried to heat seal them. And when heat sealing foam, you need to wear a respirator yet again, because what you're doing when you're sealing it is you're melting the very top layer of the foam, and that's going to release toxic fumes. And again, you do not want to breathe that stuff in. So better safe than sorry. Wear your protective gear. And then after heat sealing, I realized I could have just glued the cuffs onto the shoes anyway, because I tested it by slipping the rings on and there were no issues. So I went ahead and glued them on, but I used hot glue instead of contact cement because I couldn't wait another few days to let the glue cure before doing anything with it. So I just used hot glue. This isn't a craftsmanship thing. I'm not going to be entering it into a contest. It's all just for funsies right now. So hot glue, yeah. And then with everything somewhat glued together and secured, I painted it all with the same primer that I used before on the rings, but this time I did not accidentally touch them together, so I didn't destroy my pieces or damage them. So learn from your mistakes. And this time I painted it with acrylic paints because I did not have time to tape off and spray paint and all that jazz, because at this point it was a couple of days until the convention that I wanted to take this cosplay to, so I just didn't have time to wait for things to cure. And to be honest, I also should have painted a layer of white underneath the red parts because the red was so streaky. I had to paint a lot of coats, and I even resorted to using my hairdryer to speed things up. Lastly, I did seal the shoes with a spray-on top coat just because the dry time was quicker than my other spray paints, and I also didn't have enough of the top coat that I used on the rings to use on the shoes, so it's what we went with. There's not really a whole lot of consistency, but it looks good and it prevents the paint from transferring onto other parts of the shoes or onto my clothes, so that's a win. And here's the grand reveal. Okay, here's a post-con look at the wig, just because I did a lot of things. I wanted to show you how well the wig held up. There's just a couple of parts falling down, right here and over here, but it's not unfixable. It's stuff that I could just easily glue back on. So if you made it this far into the video, thank you for watching. Like, subscribe if you want to see more from moi, and I will see you the next project that I start.